I'm Beth Berghan, leadership and communication coach, and I'm here each Tuesday around about 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is Sydney time. Today, I'm really excited to welcome a guest to spend this time with us. His name is Kevin Raymond. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Really glad to be here.
Hey,
How you
so
doing?
some information about Kevin. Kevin is a high performance mindset coach and he's based in Canada, but he's also a really accomplished entrepreneur. And the reason that I wanted Kevin as a guest, it's been chasing him for a little while. The reason that I wanted him as a guest is because he's, as well as this high performance mindset coaching that he does now, Kevin brings with him extensive leadership experience. He's been senior policy advisors to influential cabinet ministers, helping them with their strategic acumen and honing their leadership skills. And so he's joined that experience with his knowledge and his experience as a trainer and also as an HR recruiter. So I'm really excited about the twist or the perspective that Kevin is going to share with us about these leadership and communication questions. So Kevin, again,
Yes, sir.
welcome. Help us
Thank you.
understand, what does leadership mean for you?
For me, I think one of the biggest aspects of it is vision and strategy. I think
Mm,
those two things are key to actually being able to do that job, to
yeah.
be in that position. Without that, I don't think you're able to take people to the level that you want them to be and show them how they can increase their capabilities and also surpass where they currently are at present.
Yeah. So where do they get this vision or this idea about the strategy from, Kevin? Is it their own personal vision? Does it have to be the division of the organization they work for? Or is it something else?
Well, I think it's a combination of
Mm,
not only, knowing what your organization is looking to do and what your organization wants to accomplish, but what you as a leader wants to do with your team and the vision that you have for your team and how they're going to accomplish the goals that they have to get to the results that they have to achieve, right? So it's up to
mm,
you as a leader to have the vision for them, to instill in them, to show them where they want to go and what they're going to accomplish and how they're going to do that. And it's not necessarily a step by step process for them. It's more a big picture vision so that they can see the end results of what they're working towards.
yeah. Okay. So how does the leader, what skills does a leader need to really understand and be able to articulate that vision?
I think it's incredibly important to have strong communication skills
Yeah.
for one. And I think you have to be a good listener, somebody who can, understand other people. I think emotional intelligence is key to being
Yeah.
able to work with people and to give people what they need to allow them, kind of like an open door policy, for them to come forward with their concerns, their questions, to be able to speak to issues they have without being feeling, that they're going to be questioned or jeopardized or things like that. They want to be able to
Mm,
speak freely and they want to be able to have a safe environment to speak about what their concerns are. And
mm.
you as a leader has to be able to convey that and also be able to, answer their questions and give them the appropriate responses and abilities to empower them to move forward and get where they need to go.
Mm. Often, an existing leader who is traveling, I hope they're traveling a growth journey. They're
Hmm.
often guiding or mentoring aspiring leaders, those who would like
For
to
sure.
be leaders. When you think about that, Kevin, are there two traits or characteristics that you believe are really important for aspiring leaders to develop?
I think one of the biggest ones for me like would be adaptability and
Mm,
the ability to take on things at that are thrown at you, that you like challenges, things of that
mm,
nature that you have to face and deal with on an ongoing basis, and you have to be able to change on a moment's notice, or um, around other people that are coming into your organization. Like a lot of times
yeah.
you have a team that's established, that has been there
Mm,
already, and then you pick up a couple of those people and you want to show them, but you don't want to walk all over them. So you need to be able to, monitor that and look at that and work with them. And I think, strategic thinking is also a big part of that as well.
that's strategic. I love that. Like, adaptability is something that I've spoken about in
Hmm.
leadershipization conversations previously. We haven't talked a lot about strategic thinking. If someone was an aspiring leader and perhaps they're not involved in all of those higher level meetings,
Hmm.
how can they find out about what the strategic direction of the organization is, or how can they start to influence their own strategic thinking? Question on note without notice, I apologize.
I think part of that is, analyzing situations and looking at the overall picture of the team and the structure and what you're going for. And I think putting that all together, being able to derive those concepts from the little information that you get, or
Yeah.
the visuals that you get, or you know checking in with other people, getting whatever amount of information that you can get to put it together for yourself. I think that's a very important step to take. And that's a key in proving yourself in terms of what you're able to do as well as moving forward.
I guess as you're speaking, what occurs to me, Kevin, is that this is one of those key differences between managing and being a
Yeah,
leader, isn't it?
absolutely. Because there we know that there is a difference between the two.
Mm,
One is a structured environment where things like budgeting and timelines
yeah.
and
More operational,
procedures.
maybe. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Mm,
So that's management, and the leadership is the vision, and that's the vision, the motivation, the insight to other people, the ability to empower people, to
mm,
bring them forward, to show them how to grow and develop on their own, so that at the end of the day, when you look at the levels of leadership, when you get to the top, you want to be empowering more people, and having those people reach that echelon of where you are, so that
mm,
you can continue to grow, and then have a growing environment, more innovation, more production, more everything, right? Because you don't want to lose those people, you want to bring those people with you, and
mm,
it's very important to have those people from the very beginning of your leadership journey all the way through. You don't
mm,
ever drop off those people on your way up the ladder.
mm.
You always want
I
to have
love
them with
that.
you, right?
Yeah, so there you go. Any of you aspiring leaders out there that might be listening to the replay or listening to this live, those two
Hmm.
things are really invaluable: adaptability and that strategic thinking. The flip side of that, I guess, Kevin, is that something that we often forget about in our life journey really is that maybe there are some things that that aspiring leaders would benefit from being less of. Can you think of, tell us about one thing that perhaps an aspiring leader would benefit from being less of, please?
I think it shouldn't be an issue, but occasionally there's a bit of micromanaging
Yep.
involved in leadership, and that's something that shouldn't exist in it, but it
Mm,
does, and that is something that you want to you know rein in, because you don't want to have that kind of a reputation. You also don't want to do that because it's negative impact on your team. You're disempowering them basically, right? And the other
yep.
thing would be like fear of failure. you can't be afraid of taking that chance and worrying about if you're not going to make it or not, because that's going to also trickle down into the rest of your team as well. So
I
you don't want
really, yeah, I really like that, because I think for many aspiring leaders, we've already identified that there's this difference between being a manager and being a leader. Not all leaders are great managers. Not all
yeah,
managers are great leaders, and vice versa.
exactly.
Not all leaders are required to be managers either. Yeah.
That's right.
So what I really like about that is that people are often given leadership responsibilities, particularly if it's an internal promotion.
Yeah,
They're often given that, and they are promoted from out of a team that they've worked in previously. So that,
yes,
they've been handpicked out of their colleagues, and there's a transitional period where they really have to let go of being great buddies with people, and adopt more of a
yes.
leadership set of boundaries, don't they?
I agree 100%, and I think a good way to do that, when you do inherit something like that, and instead of, like, roughshotting over everything and going in and just, kind of, you know taking over and forcing your um, type of style on what already exists. I think, it's worth taking that time, like even if it's a month, to, see what your team is all about, see
Mm,
what they're capable of doing, understand where their strengths are, meet with those people, talk to them, convey what you want to achieve, and find out how, with their skill set, they can be
I
either
can
in the
achieve
same
that.
position, change their position, whatever it needs to happen, right? So that you're working cohesively and together, so that things are happening for the team as a whole to come to that conclusion of success that everybody
Mm.
wants.
So, is there, when you think about that what I've just described, where there's an internal promotion and someone's promoted
hmm
above their previous colleagues, are there a couple of boundaries that you think are really important there?
I think that quite often those positions happen just because the person has been there long enough.
Mm,
There's nothing else that happened. But I do think that there is a line, and there is a way to convey to the person that, say you were side by side colleagues and now you're their superior. I think you
mm,
have to, set some boundaries there where before, there were none.
mm,
But now it's a matter of you having to gain that sense of authority and respect from that person, right? So you can't expect that that's just going to happen. You have to earn
mm.
it, and I think you have to earn it no matter what the situation is when you're a
Yep,
leader. But
I agree.
when you've been working with somebody side by side, and then you become a superior, you really
Mm.
have to earn that respect and step out of that relationship that you once had, where you're, going out after work, drinking together, things like that, right? Like you kind of have to separate that a little bit, so that, you do have that kind of difference between the
Yeah,
two of you.
I love that you've used that example, because that's one that I used recently with a client, where I
Oh
talked
yeah,
about the fact that, if you're their colleague, you can
yeah,
still be there at 2 a.m.,
yeah,
playing whatever game it is. When you are the leader of the team, and you have a different role, then you're the one who's going home at 9 a.m., or
yeah,
whatever, and that
exactly.
it's about establishing the boundaries, and they relate to all areas of behavior. It's about
Exactly.
being prepared to step forward and say, that's
Yeah,
gossip. We don't need to be doing the
yeah,
gossip. So very often it's those small things that just establish the fact that you're prepared
yeah.
to embrace that role.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, boundaries are a big thing. Like, they don't necessarily have to be negative, but you do have to have some boundaries,
Mm,
and people have to be aware of them, and because there has to be that line. Like, you have to know
yeah.
when you've crossed a line,
Yeah.
and what that line is, right? So
Mm.
that's, I think that's very important to establish once you're
Yeah,
in there.
it can be a difficult thing for some
Yeah,
people
for
to
sure.
set, particularly if they have uh, wishy-washy or wobbly boundaries in their own personal
Hmm.
life. It's hard then
Yes.
for them to actually, commit to them. So yeah, interesting. When you think back, I'm loving this conversation. When you think back on all of your years of leadership, is there a kind of like a sliding doors moment in relationship to your leadership journey that you can share with us? Did you decide I don't want to do this anymore, or yes, I do want to do this?
I think when I think about stuff like that, there's one instance that kind of occurred that it sort of covered kind of all the things that could happen to you in that kind of position or that role.
Yep.
And it was when I was working with a minister in municipal affairs, and I was um, assigned the task of rewriting a municipal act for an entire province. So it was about 445 municipalities, right? So there was,
Mm.
over 1,000 changes to be made to the legislation, and it entailed a lot. There was about a team of 110 people involved in it. So lots of dynamics, lots of issues with the minister, lots of issues with the premier's office and such. And there came a point where, you know, the team that was involved in that had made some decisions, and there was a tipping point where um, you had a choice to go with the team and the decision that was to the benefit of all municipalities and what you were actually trying to accomplish. And then you had the choice of going with the premier's office, which was for something to save one kind of large stakeholder.
Mm.
And and I chose to go with the team that I'd been working with, and decided to just take the consequences of what that would be, which was basically just a whipping of some sort from the premier's office. But in that case, that I felt it was necessary to support the people that we worked with so hard on the task that we were given, as opposed to walking away from that and not being there for them, because I think they had to be supported, and I think it was very
Mm.
important to do that. So for me, that was a kind of a sliding door moment in terms of that.
That's really interesting because it brings. Thank you for sharing that with us, by the way. But it brings to mind um, the the fact that um, the reason that we have leaders in place is to support the activity that needs to be done, whether it's
Yeah,
making of a product, providing of a service, whatever it might be. And in order for us to get that service done, or to get the team functioning, sometimes we have to advocate for them, and sometimes we have
absolutely.
to actually be, I'm trying to think of the right word, almost like a barrier between
Hmm.
them and those who are higher up who have a
For sure.
different perspective.
Yeah,
As a leader, we got to go to bat for our team,
that's right.
and
I think
sometimes that might mean it's not very pretty.
exactly. It can't always be the good way, and that's one of the things that I think, like, if you look at it in terms of a pitcher, as a person who's leading the team, instead of the team being in a triangle, you're at the top, you're actually underneath holding it up.
Mm,
Your team's on top of you and you're holding it up, and that's your job, is to make
mm.
sure that all of those things are happening, and you're not climbing over everybody's head to take credit,
Yeah.
or tossing them under the bus, so to speak, when the thing goes the other way.
Yeah, I love that because, yeah, we talk about all sorts of things that leaders do. We want to
Hmm.
empower your team. We want you
Yeah.
to be able to make sure people feel valued. We want you to give them stretch assignments to do. We want you to have them working to their specific skill sets. We want you to work out how to continue to stretch and grow them, to make
Exactly.
sure that they're meeting the values, that they've got the vision, all of that kind of thing. What we don't always talk about, and I think sometimes what teams don't actually see, is that the leader might not look really busy, but there's a lot
Yes.
of thinking, there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of processing, there's a lot of meeting going that goes into the role sometimes, and a lot of that is advocating for your team.
Yeah. And I think a big part of that is again the communication part
Mm,
where you know personally, I think there would be a little bit of an issue if your team was thinking that you were not doing your job, if they have the opportunity to be thinking that something's not jiving, and
mm,
you need to open up a little bit more communication, because they should know that you
yeah.
are working on their behalf and that you are there for them, and that you're not just, sitting in your desk and watching them hone away on their skills and stuff. So like you
Tip
need
in
to
your pen.
exactly that, right? You need to make sure that they understand what's going on, and I think it's a big part of it that open communication again with the open door policy, it's so that people do have understanding, and then they can come in and say, like, I'm thinking you're just sitting on your ass doing nothing. What's that about? Why am I thinking that? Right? And
Yeah.
then it's your job to make sure that they don't.
I love that. Thank you, Kevin. So we've looked at, that vision and strategy, and where you might get that from. You've got to have
Hmm.
the strong communication, and
Yeah.
the emotional intelligence is important. Aspiring leaders need to really focus on that adaptability, the
Yes.
ability to pivot as they need to, and developing their strategic thinking. Limit the micromanaging, have a success perspective rather than I'm going to fail, and they need to set those boundaries. But the thing that brings it all together, the thing that ties it all together, is their communication skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
integrity.
And oh yeah, that's my number one value all the time is
Yeah.
integrity. And I guess thank you for that reminder, because when you shared the sliding doors moment with us, for me that's about integrity.
Right.
I'm going here, not
Exactly.
here.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, which is
Which is what it's about.
important. So Kevin, if anybody who's listening or watching this, how would they get in contact with you if they'd like to know more about you and what you do?
You can get me at Kevin at kevinraymond.net. I'm on Instagram, Kevin underscore Raymond underscore coaching. And my website is www.kevtalk.net. So any of those places you can get me. It's usually like just Kevin Raymond coaching in one form or another on all of the platforms. So it's pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's been really
Thank you.
enjoyable. For everybody else,
I
as I've
appreciate
said
it.
to you before, hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. Very comfortable for you to send any questions that you may have, or comments about the conversation that Kevin and I've been having. In the meantime, I'll be back here next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That's Sydney time. 11 a.m. Leadershipisation, all things leadership. See you then. Bye now.
Well,